We are all related.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
The opinions expressed in the following programs are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers Cable or Rogers TV.
Hello and thank you for joining Age-Friendly Caledon Conversations, a segment series where we'll be talking about the services and supports connected with Age-Friendly Caledon. I'm your host, Rick Sargent, and for our segment today, we'll be talking with Margaret Pan and Stephen Jansen from Bethel Hospice, discussing advanced care planning and hospice palliative supports. Margaret is the Executive Director of Bethel Hospice, who has over 25 years of healthcare experience, and Stephen Jansen is a spiritual and grief counselor who supports clients and their families through a variety of therapeutic approaches. Stephen, Margaret, welcome.
Hi, thanks.
It's nice to have you here.
Thanks for having us.
So before we really get into things, could you, Margaret, perhaps we'll start with you. Could you give us an overview of what Bethel Hospice is and some of the key services that you offer the Caledon community?
Absolutely. So Bethel Hospice is an organization that is really unique. We play a really unique role in the healthcare system. We support people who are experiencing palliative care needs, the people that care for them, and we also support people in grief and bereavement. So we actually have a hospice residence which has 10 end-of-life beds in Inglewood, so part of Caledon, and we've been there for 15 years. Next year will be our 15th year, but we also provide services in the community for people who are living in their homes or living in their homes and come to the hospice for services. So we provide that program as well. We have a team of 50 staff and over 130 volunteers that provide all of that wonderful, unique, specialized care. And we actually are excited that we have historically been providing care in the Caledon region, a little bit into Brampton as well. But we actually have just announced that we are going through an integration with Hospice Dufferin. So Bethel Hospice will also be moving and providing community care in the Dufferin region as well.
Well, that's excellent. Yeah. Now, with that many people, obviously, I would think that the type of service you provide is not inexpensive. So do you do various things throughout the year in terms of fundraising and that sort of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. We have to fundraise. We're obviously very grateful for the support we get from the Ministry of Health, which provides majority of our funding, but we also have to fundraise, and we do rely on our community and our donors and supporters for that, yes.
Now, Stephen, the work that you do, obviously, I guess you get to work firsthand with the families of people who are using the services there.
That's right, yeah. So I provide support through counseling and just help them process the information, the reality of what's happening to them individually or with family members, depending on their needs and their wishes. And I can do that by phone, Zoom, in person, at their home sometimes, because sometimes they don't have capacity to travel, or if they can come to Inglewood, where I have an office as well, and hopefully eventually in Orangeville too. Yeah. And so, we try to make their needs the priority and meet them where they need to be, rather than forcing them to do what we want them to do. So it's about patient-centered care.
Now, you mentioned the integration with Dufferin. That's something that's relatively new, is it not?
Yeah, we actually just announced it this month, so it is hot off the press, as they say. We're very excited that, again, we've now announced, and this month, so September, we will start transitioning some clients as well as hopefully some volunteers over to Bethel Hospice, and then by October 1st is sort of the official day where we will then fully be integrated.
Now, you still have 2 locations, is that right?
Yeah, so the current location we have is in Inglewood. As Stephen said, we're on McLaughlin Road, and so that's where our 10-bed hospice is, as well as some of our community folks. We all work out of that space, but with this integration, with this expansion into Dufferin, we are planning on sort of taking over the space that Hospice Dufferin has been providing care in Dufferin. We really would like to keep things as consistent as possible, honoring the wonderful legacy of Hospice Dufferin and ensuring that we in fact are where people are used to finding that hospice care. So that will be our second site.
Very good.
Yeah.
Now, Stephen, does that mean that your geographic area now has expanded a bit into Dufferin County as well, as opposed to just Caledon?
Yeah, it does. It sort of opens it up. I do sometimes take care of some clients in the area, but most of it predominantly was within the Caledon and Brampton area. And
Right.
so it does increase our demographic.
Right,
Our
right.
geographic.
Excellent. Now, for people to be able to use your services, do they have to reside in either Caledon or Dufferin, or what are the rules around that?
So it's a little bit different for our two programs. So if I think about our end-of-life beds, that is open to anybody in the province, that we really, anybody could really access those 10 beds. Community programs, there's a number of hospices. Thankfully, I think most communities have a community hospice, so people tend to go to that community hospice. So we sometimes will provide support outside of Caledon and now Dufferin. Brampton is an area we also service, but if there was a connection to Bethel or a need, or there wasn't care available in another community, we certainly would step in and provide that. But we tend to sort of organize around the Dufferin, Caledon, predominant in Brampton region.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of thinking in situations where people may have lived in Caledon for a number of
Yeah.
years and moved away,
Yeah.
but want to come back to.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're much more, we try to not think about boundaries as the first sort of thinking when you think about care and services. Obviously organizing, sometimes that's a way we do things, but I think if there was a connection and a need, we would certainly want to never, deny somebody that care.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so the big question now, it sounds like a simple term, but I think there's lots of parts to it. What is exactly advanced care planning?
So advanced care planning, I know it does sound simple, doesn't it? But it's not as simple. Otherwise, I think we would do it more. And so advanced care planning, I'm going to break it down into thinking about it in three different ways. This advanced care planning is really about understanding who would make decisions for you if you were not capable of making decisions. It requires you to think about what you actually what you value, what your wishes and beliefs would be if in fact you couldn't make decisions for yourself, and then telling those people. So it's really about, we know that at some point, most of us may face a circumstance where we aren't able to make our own decisions. Something's happened, there's been a healthcare scenario, and somebody needs to step in for us. Advanced care planning asks us to think about that in advance. We really don't make great decisions and deal with things when there's a crisis or when there's something facing us. So we really are wanting to encourage people to think about advanced care planning in advance.
Yep.
That's where the advanced word comes from. And to think about it when they maybe believe they don't need to. So the saying is, the best time to think about advanced care planning is now. It's about, not about an age, it's not about a diagnosis, it's really about us as an individual wanting to make sure that when we can't speak for ourselves, we've got the right person speaking on our behalf, and that we've given them the information they need to feel confident to speak on our behalf. Whether we decide to do this or not, at some point this will be engaged for us. So I think an important thing for all of us to be able to do. And it's, we say sometimes it's a gift to our loved ones. If we don't give them information about what we value, what we care for, what we think is important, they will be left to make that decision for us. And so we often say, it's a gift to tell people so that when they do have to make that decision, they feel really confident and don't suffer perhaps consequences that might not be the most healthy.
Yeah.
So do you get into things paperwork-wise, such as powers of attorney and wills and those conversations with people?
So there is obviously there's some paperwork and things that could be involved, but I will share, and I'm not going to get into all of it, but I do know there's going to be some resources available for people to look at on the website that I think will be shared at some point in this episode. I think the piece is that the substitute decision maker, you don't actually have to fill out any paperwork for that, but you have to be comfortable with who your substitute decision maker would be legally. So there is There's legislation, there's something called the Healthcare Consent Act, and in that it outlines who would be your substitute decision maker if you didn't appoint somebody. So you talk about a power of attorney, that's where we actually choose somebody and designate that, and there is paperwork for that. Separate from a will or things like that, this is about who's going to make your healthcare decisions. So I would encourage people to be familiar what we call the automatic hierarchy of family members. So, for example, if you don't appoint somebody and you have a spouse or partner, that's going to be your automatic first SDM. If you don't have a spouse or partner, it would be parents or children. And then there's a whole list that goes in order. And again, we won't go through all of it now, but I want people to be familiar with it, because if you don't love who your automatic family member would be, then I would certainly encourage you to seek out somebody who would be then your power of attorney, which would actually override the family hierarchy.
Right.
So, yeah.
In your experience, do you find that people are more educated now than they used to be in terms of pre-planning and making decisions for loved ones?
Stephen?
Yeah, it's complex. It depends on age, but by and large, I think they're becoming more educated, because the end of life is a little more socially accepted discussion, especially here in Canada, and necessary. It just takes initiation, and it takes prompting sometimes, and it takes encouragement. It's not life of the party conversations, right? And so, and like Margaret said, when to talk about it is now, because life is full of stages and phases, and this is fluid. The way you look at life at one stage and phase can change dramatically, and so it helps so much when you yourself know and your family knows, or your loved ones know exactly your wishes, so that if you ever become incapacitated, there is a consensus or a general understanding of your wishes. And that's the biggest thing, is breaking some of those glass ceilings of getting that communication and allowing, because it helps people, it helps them settle and understand, oh, this is what they wanted, rather than, well, we never talked about it, so this is what I want, which is not what you want to talk about. It's your wishes and your will that needs to be discussed.
Now, Stephen, in your role, do you act as a facilitator in some cases in terms of families now that want to have these conversations? Do you kind of help them get past some of the more difficult
Absolutely.
difficult topics?
Yeah. It is overwhelming at times, because all of a sudden you're faced with maybe a terminal or life-limiting illness, and treatments are no longer possible, and so you have to think about end of life, and it's a game changer for a lot of people. We're not wired that way. We're wired to how to stay alive and how to to make the best out of our life, and to think about it differently in our own mortality can be overwhelming. And so helping them de-escalate and helping them understand it's okay to feel this way. It is information overload. And you're working with healthcare, which that in and of itself can be shocking to understand. How to navigate some of these procedures and everything. It helps them understand how to work with that information and then channel it so that they can make good decisions, and then inform their family and friends, and initiate that, because family and friends also they're struggling too to work with this information and how to help their loved ones.
Right.
So.
Right. Awesome. Margaret, Stephen, great information. Don't go anywhere, because we have lots more to cover. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back here in a few minutes on Age Friendly Caledon.
Yeah.
Passionate content creator ready to expand your audience reach? Do you have unique stories, captivating hobbies, or special interests that deserve a spotlight? Rogers TV is here to amplify your voice within the community. We offer you the platform to broadcast your content to a wider audience. And the best part, it's completely free. Don't miss this opportunity to share your vision and engage with viewers. Find out how Rogers TV can transform your content journey today.
Welcome back to Age-Friendly Caledon Conversations. I'm your host, Rick Sargent, and we're joined today by Margaret Pon and Stephen Jensen from Bethel Hospice in Caledon. And we're talking about all things to do with Bethel Hospice, palliative care, end of life, but also much, much more than that. And Margaret, during the break, we were talking a little bit about some of the other services that you offer. And many people in many cases, and not their fault, they think of Bethel Hospice as end-of-life care only.
Yeah.
And there's so many other services that you offer. So can you maybe just go over again for us briefly, some of the advanced planning that you offer?
Yeah, thanks, Rick. I think absolutely one of the things that we offer is our 10-bed end-of-life hospice residence. And I think you're right, people often think about us as that, which we are so proud, and that is such a unique part of our care as well. We are, I should say this, we are actually the only hospice right now that exists in all of Dufferin, Caledon, and actually Peel as well today. So we are a very unique, specialized, end-of-life hospice. And we fill up. Last year we saw over 160 people in those 10 beds. We're very proud of that service. And I think people often think of us as that, which again, proud to be seen as that because it's something that's such a critical part of the system. But we also do more than our hospice beds and more than end-of-life care. And that's where Stephen and the supportive care team come into play. And we really say that, we have 10 beds where we can kind of connect with 10 families and 10 residents at a time, but when you think about the community, those numbers are in the thousands, and so we're really proud. We've serviced, I think, close to 600 individuals last year, and that's just as an individual. We know that we also connect with their families, so it ends up becoming thousands of people that we actually support and care for through our community programs. So maybe we'll turn to Stephen, and maybe Stephen can share a little bit more about what those community sort of services and programs do and who they're for.
Yeah. So we serve the whole range from children to adult to elderly in the area, and provide end of life and palliative care, but also, as well as bereavement care, which is really important for people when they're concerned about their loved ones and what's going to happen to them. And it really assures them that, even after you pass on, we're there for your friends and family. And this is really what really helps is that sometimes we serve this area, but we could extend that. Friends and family come from all over the world, and then they have to go back home, and they're still grieving that loss, and they don't know what to do. And so I've Zoomed with a lot of clients in other countries and continue with that services just so that they can heal after a significant loss. In the communities, we provide adult support bereavement groups as well. In Inglewood, we have in person, and we do that on an ongoing rotating schedule with my colleagues. The supportive care team is made up of 3 social workers and 2 spiritual care providers and counselors, and so we address end of life and bereavement care for friends and family while they're going through it and then afterwards. And it's sort of more of a holistic approach, the psychological, the social, sometimes the physical, and the spiritual. And people just find that very comforting. And oftentimes, Bethel Hospice, it's in that little area, and when people have a place and a space to grieve and feel supported, it becomes a haven for them, almost just like sort of sacred space. And they'll often come back after they've lost a loved one there to meet with the staff, to meet with the volunteers, because it was such a powerful experience, and they find comfort in that kind of support when they felt there was a need.
How do you go about promoting your services throughout the community?
We try and take whatever avenue or venue like this.
Besides a TV show like
obviously
this,
this,
right?
Rick, yeah.
Okay.
I think one of our sort of taglines or things we like to say is "Here when you need us," and so you're right. Some of our mission is to make sure people know who we are so that we can be there when they need us. We often say we're like the best kept secret in in the Caledon, in the hills of headwaters, but we don't want to be a secret anymore. We want to share. We want people to know who we are so they can reach out to us. And I think it's important for people to know certainly we have physicians or nurses that will send referrals to us, but you don't need to have that to be referred into our programs, especially our community programs. People can self-refer. They can, there's forms. Our website has all of our information. People can go and they can reach out. They can maybe even just reach out, ask questions, find out a little bit more. But we really don't want to have barriers for accessibility for people to reach us, because we can't be there when they need us if they don't know who we are, and we make it difficult to get to us. So, yeah.
You mentioned in the first half of the show that you rely on a large group of volunteers. Excuse me. How do you go about recruiting volunteers? And if somebody watching this show now wants to be a volunteer, how do they go about reaching out to you?
Yeah, we're really proud of our volunteer team. We have a very large, robust team that works in the house as well as in the community. We're growing our community program right now, so very excited. Again, our website, our Bethel Hospice website, which will be shared, is where I would say you can go. You can get information on filling out a form, or you just get the name and phone number of our volunteer team. So we have a volunteer manager and a couple other team members, and we have a really wonderful training, onboarding sort of program. People can try out and see things, decide if this is for them or not, and then they can go through the actual training. But every year, I think it's about twice a year, we do sort of a formal push and orientation. So I think it's kind of a spring fall. We bring in new volunteers, and we're always very grateful. We have many volunteers that have been with us for over 20 years, lots 5, 10, 15 plus years. I think that speaks to sort of the spirit of the organization, to the team base, that really volunteers are a critical part of the care we provide. And many of them, not all, but certainly many of them had family members or loved ones or friends that were touched by Bethel Hospice, and often want to give back and want to be there for the next people that are using our services. So it's always a great part of our team, because they have such personal experience with it.
As the saying goes, right? If you have a good experience with an organization, you'll tell all your friends about it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's quite common. The volunteers that are generated just out of their own loved one's death experience at Bethel Hospice, and through bereavement counseling, they're trying to find meaning, they're trying to find purpose again. And I always encourage them, life isn't over; it's just different. And they sometimes find the different way of volunteering at Bethel Hospice. And it's not only you can meet with and work directly with the residents after training and orientation, but there's landscaping, there's kitchen, there's reception. It's a wide demographic of expertise. And so if you have a skill set that is oriented for Bethel, you could probably use it. And a lot of people will volunteer and find, again, that place and space where we had such an impact. They just want to give back. And I think that's a great testimony to Bethel, that, here's a community responding positively because they want to volunteer, and healthcare needs that kind of representation from the community.
I was going to say, I've had the privilege of visiting your facility in Inglewood, and looking at the grounds, it's always immaculate. So obviously it takes a large group of people to be out there every day tending to the flower beds and the grass and keeping everything looking great like it does.
Yeah, we have a tremendous team, and yes, you mentioned our gardening team, and there are a lot, dozens and dozens of hands that go into that soil and help make that such a beautiful place for people who are going through such, difficult, vulnerable part of their life. And we hear that all the time. And so, yes, shout out to our amazing landscaping and gardening volunteer team, because really that is done almost exclusively with volunteers.
Yeah. And that's accessible to the residents themselves. They have access to that as well as their families. We've done lots of birthday parties, anniversaries, weddings, you know, where, you know, the loved one can't move, so they come and then they celebrate there. And, you know, it's just a place and a space where they can be. And hospitals can't give that kind of continuity and consistency, but Bethel has that atmosphere and space where it's about, you know, their well-being. It's about comfort and dignity and respect.
Absolutely.
And you do presentations out in the community as well, I'm assuming.
Yeah, we absolutely do. And I think, you know, speaking about the integration into the Dufferin region, this is an opportunity for us to be able to sort of get out there again and share more, build that awareness. It's one of our strategic priorities, is to build awareness of our services with the community, again, so they can access. We look forward to the time where we can keep growing and adding, so that we know there are more needs that out there that we aren't aware of. And so really a part of our mission is to making sure that we're the leaders in hospice palliative care. People know who we are, what we do, and that they are able to reach out, or we're able to help find them. So we work with the healthcare system. So we, if somebody comes to us and they find us, but they have other needs, we will make sure that we will connect them to those other partners. We work with the hospitals, the home care, the physicians, you know, you name an organization in the healthcare system, we're connected and we have relationships. So we rely on people to be identified to us and for us to do the same. It's really, like Stephen said, that holistic care. We often say, you know, palliative care is a team sport, because although we certainly feel we are the experts in this specialized field, we work with others. We never do everything exclusively only with Bethel. There's always going to be a partnership with another healthcare provider. So it's important that people know that, because we want people to know that we will make sure that all their needs are addressed.
Right. So you're not directly connected with the healthcare network, but you work with everybody in the
we are
network.
part of the Hills of Headwaters Ontario Health Team. So there is, so the Hills of Headwaters Ontario Health Team is really all the healthcare and social sort of service folks covering Dufferin and Caledon, and we are a member of that organization, or association, I guess. And so because of that, that lets us make sure that, you know, we can contribute where we can, people know who we are, and then we know who everyone else is. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah, I mean, I guess a key takeaway from today's conversation is really understanding that Bethel Hospice is not just end of life.
Yeah.
There's, as we talked about, the advanced planning, right? That really is crucial for people to actually engage in. As you know, we nobody likes to think about death.
Right.
You know, Stephen, as you said earlier, we, you know, as humans, we want to. You know, try to think about living, right? How do we live better?
Yeah.
But unfortunately, the reality is that you know, things don't always go that way. Right?
But we often say, though, that you really only die one day. So every other day you are living, and we really believe that hospice palliative care is about quality living until you die, and then care for those who loved you after you're gone. It is full circle. It is full continuum. So,
Right.
Yeah, it's empowering them and empowering and giving them some control as much as they can to make the decisions that they want to make, and inform and educate their family friends. And that, you know, that's one of the things is, you know, this is so life-giving, and it has so much potential to create, you know, well-being. And help people grieve in a healthy way rather than a dysfunctional way. Right. And it just needs early intervention. The earlier, the better. You know, it doesn't mean if you talk about it's happening tomorrow. It means, you know, you're engaged and you're an active participant then, rather than passively watching it happen. You can make it happen.
Right. Excellent. Well, Margaret, Stephen, thank you very much for joining us today and giving us all that great information. And we look forward to hearing more from Bethel Hospice in the months to come.
Thanks so much.
You're very welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for joining us today again. Please tune in for additional age-friendly Caledon conversation segments airing on Rogers TV and available on YouTube. For more information on these and other programs designed to help Caledon residents age well and in place, please reach out to Age Friendly Caledon by phoning 311, emailing adult55@caledon.ca, or visiting our website online at www.caledon.ca/adult55, where you would sign up for a monthly e-newsletter and keep yourself connected with news, events, programs, and more.
Connect with us by visiting our website or email us at comments@rogerstv.com.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Hi, can I take your order? Hello?
Oh, hey. Wait, what was the question?
Let me guess. One driving high combo, extra baked?
No?